to have been asked by Ron Thorpe to take this job, to leave what he called my utopia, and to be a part of an incredible mission that we will carry out to its fullest. To be a nationally board certified teacher, to do the work of the national board has been a life's dream. Ron and I shared the same passion for many, many years. And to be able to work with a visionary, to be able to work with a colleague and a friend who cared so much about each of you. You were the best part of this profession. And you are the people who have the voices who can make this happen. So with that, I kept the tears down. I think I'm good. And we are ready to get started with an incredible panel. So I'd like to bring to the stage Alicia Hunter. She's an English teacher at the largest comprehensive high school in Washington, D.C., with more than 1,700 students. In addition to her teaching duties, Alicia writes curriculum, mentors student teachers, and participates in community engagement projects. Alicia is an active member of the Washington Teachers Union, where she is a teacher leader. You saw her in the video clip yesterday. A professional development facilitator and a member of the contract negotiation teams. Alicia switched careers, but she took no shortcuts, and she's earned 2 master's degrees. So good morning. Thank you, Alicia. Mary Solis has taught English at Ray High School in Corpus Christi since 1997. She earned a bachelor's and a master's degree in English from Texas A&M and Corpus Christi. She's known as Mary to many of her teachers, and she likes helping out with at-risk students, especially Hispanic youth, like those where she grew up in Laredo, Texas. She's a proud single mother of 3 and a grandmother of 8. She applied to the AFT Teacher Leadership Program in Corpus Christi to get more involved in teachers' leadership and to change her own school. Thank you. Mark Baumgardner is a career-long educator, is a professional issues director in Cleveland Teachers Union. In his role, he works with the district leadership to implement academic reforms in Cleveland public schools. He's played a key role in the Common Core implementation, co-designing plans with district colleagues, ensuring teacher voice, and supporting instructional coaches in schools. He'll be sharing his role through a grant. The Innovation Fund from AFT has played in helping Cleveland Teachers Union teach to new standards, creating aligned lessons for a district lesson sharing platform, and which he then reached teachers around the country through Share My Lesson. Mark has also served as a teacher leaders program facilitator for CTU. Thank you. Jamie Bryce Hyde is a social studies teacher at Horseheads Senior High School in Horseheads, New York, where she is a union activist and a member of Badass Teachers Association. Jamie is a building rep, a political action committee member locally, serves at the state level as a member of the New York State United Teachers Policy Council and its Civil and Human Rights Committee. Jamie started her career in business management after staying at home for a couple of years to raise her children. She decided to do more meaningful work, and she started teaching. You'll hear more about her work and her workplace as we go along, and you learned about part of it yesterday in the survey. Betty Nieves is an English language arts teacher at the School of Integrated Learning in Brooklyn, a prose school, and she'll tell you more about that. And rest assured, you will hear more about what it means from Betty as one of its architects. Betty is a UFT chapter leader and a peer collaborative teacher. In the past, she has been called on to do presentations on the prose approach, and you had a little preview in Randy's speech yesterday. So, thank you. We want to get started in the panel. I want to ask each of the panelists, and we'll start here and go from left to right, about how did you decide to make your voices heard beyond the classroom? And what is your take on teacher leadership, and how have you exercised that teacher leadership?
So I just want to begin and talk about my first year in the District of Columbia. Coming from Southern Virginia, it was a challenge to what I was used to. And so from there, I realized what I was doing in the classroom just wasn't enough. My students were coming in with so many social and economic barriers to teaching and learning, and I realized my lessons just wasn't enough. And I was trained to have this really traditional outlook on the classroom. My role as a teacher was to grade papers and write lessons, and that was it. And I realized working in an environment of that nature, that just wasn't enough. And I really didn't know how. How do I really change this traditional role? And typically, when you're a teacher, when you want to make that type of change, you're encouraged to leave the classroom, to become an administrator. And I knew that being that disconnected from my students, I wasn't going to make the best decisions. And so in 2012, I joined AFT's teacher leadership program, and it really gave me the how, to really figure out how to expand beyond my role of the traditional educator. And so what I decided was that it was essential to stay in the classroom, to stay connected, and also to realize the influence I could have with policy and the community. And I just want to say that sometimes we hear the word leadership and we think that it means to manage someone, and it's not really that. I think that every teacher has some aspect of leadership within them, whatever your niche may be. And so I realized for me, in my community, it was really important for the community engagement piece. And so I began to do work there to be more involved with the community and to start to foster those additional relationships to really support what I was doing in the classroom. I realized in an urban setting, I needed the support. And so with teacher leadership, it's essential with 21st century education. Our students are different and they have different needs. And so from there, what I've really done, community schools is really big. It's something I couldn't accomplish on my own. So I decided, what can I do at my individual school level to really start this type of thinking for community schools? And so what I've done is some action research about school-based public relations to really learn how to start to forge those relationships within the community, because the school really is a community hub, particularly in areas where there's economic disadvantage. The students, the community, they need that one place. And just moving forward, I just think with teacher leadership, everyone should be an active participant.
All right. Well, I have been teaching for 20 years, and the reason for going into teaching was to help the at-risk student, the Hispanic student that I grew up with, and being one myself. I lived in a neighborhood where poverty existed, and we were by no means rich. And so I wanted to teach the at-risk, and eventually they moved me up to the pre-AP and advanced courses because of the success rate of the standardized test by my students. And so for many years I've been teaching those courses until the last couple of years I started teaching freshmen again. And what motivated me to join the Teacher Leaders Program was to get help in how to deal with the laws and the policies that have been implemented by the Great Placement Committee, which is basically the social promotion committee for students that do not pass the standardized reading test at the 5th and 8th grade level. They are promoted based on the fact and promise that they will be successful with further teaching by their teachers in the next year. So my granddaughter was my first student, my first GPC student last year. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe she hadn't passed any of her tests, although she had been promoted to 9th grade. She was told 2 weeks before school started that she was going to be retained and not go to high school unless the mom appealed, and she did. My daughter signed Didn't know what she was signing. I didn't know when she started until I started doing some investigation of my own. And she stayed in my pre-AP class. She failed all her 3 tests again that year. She had severe anxiety. The second year, with a lot of my help at home and tutoring, she passed all her 3 tests. Then this year, I ended up with more GPC students, and 5 of them were boys, and they were considered, low achieving. What I found that they were promoted in 5th grade to middle school, then in middle school to 9th grade without passing the reading tests at all, or any of their tests. So again, I went to my principals and I go, these kids don't have the skills. They don't have the skills. And all I was hearing was, what else do you need? What else can you do? Well, it wasn't about material things. It wasn't about my teaching. It was the law that is hurting these kids. And we've been talking about having our voices heard, but I was the voice for my granddaughter. I am the voice for my grandkids. I am the voice for my students. And I want to be heard for them, not just by administration, but also by parents who do not understand the education system. And so I reached out to AFT, joined the Teachers English program, did the research on the GPC student, and find that it is very, very unfair to the student. It's just setting them up for failure in high school with the promise that they will graduate and gain skills in 6 months before testing that they have lacked throughout their educational years from elementary. So I'm here for my students as much as I am for myself.
Thank you, Mary.
I've been a teacher for 26 years in Cleveland. I started using my voice outside of my classroom the same way many of our teachers in Cleveland do. Our collective bargaining agreement has many chances for teacher leadership positions within these schools. We have what's called the Academic Achievement Plan. That's our Title I document. That's written every year, and the teachers are elected onto that writing team. The principal is also a member, and so is the building chair. We have union conference committees. We have building chairs in every a building chair in every building, the union chair. So I've gone through all of that outside of my classroom and taking leadership roles within the building. I then looked for opportunities to have my voice heard outside of the building and for the district-wide. And so I was elected to the Cleveland Teachers Union Executive Board. And once there, every time there was a district initiative that came down, whether it was scope and sequence in our pacing guide or whether it was our evaluation system that is new, where could teacher voices, classroom teachers from the classroom, just regular teachers, not even building chairs, where could their voices be heard in leadership positions around this? So I've made sure that teacher voices in every district initiative were heard and used. Then in 2012, I took it upon myself, or I applied for the Innovation Fund, where it wasn't just piggybacking on a district initiative, but it was actually a Cleveland Teachers Union initiative. And we were awarded, the Cleveland Teachers Union was awarded an Innovation Fund in 2012. And every year we've had 18 teachers, English and math, evenly split pretty much, write curriculum that is aligned to the Common Core. And so we're done with 3 years of the Innovation Fund now, and we have 54 teacher leader curriculum developers from K to 12 in English and math that have gone through the year-long process of writing lessons, revising, using the EQUIP rubric to make them exemplar lessons. And we are now exploring ways that those 54 teachers can lead professional development for other classroom teachers to write exemplar, rigorous lessons that are aligned to the Common Core. So that was an initiative that wasn't just piggybacked on the district.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamie Brycehyde, and I'm a badass teacher. I found my teacher voice, I think the first day I started in the classroom, because I love teaching so much and working with young people. And they needed my voice. And so I learned how important a union was and became very involved in my union. And in 2010, when Governor Cuomo axed our district to the point where we lost 23% of our membership in our union, I needed a way to shout out, and I found the Badass Teachers. And every day we do actions to help teachers and children across the country. We're a national organization with over 55,000 members, and we have pages, Facebook pages in 50 states. So when you're involved in the organization, you're hearing voices of teachers from across the country. And last September 2014, we heard of a teacher that had committed suicide after receiving her teacher evaluation and her beautiful VAM scores. Folks, it gets better or worse. And so a group of us direct messaged each other and said, oh my God, how could it get that bad? And how could no one know that a teacher was in this kind of distress? 3 days later, one of the members of my team was called in to take over a lunch period, like somebody needed to leave on an emergency their classroom in this particular school. So this teacher went in to take over the class. This was her friend. Her friend had her jacket there and everything, and she said, I'm really in a hurry, I have to go. She left the building to commit suicide and succeeded. So there my friend sat at her desk with the suicide note in the top drawer. And her jacket hung over, her friend's jacket hung over the chair she sat in to hear that she had just killed herself. So a few days later, we hear of another suicide. Now, if a teacher's work environment is a student's learning environment and teachers are killing themselves, my God, what are we doing to our kids? So being the badass that I am, I was very angry, upset, very emotional, and I sent Randy Weingarten an email. And as those of you know, if you're out on social media, she loves to talk to people, even the people that don't want to talk to her, right? But I did not expect a response, I will be honest with you. And the reason I didn't email my NYSUT president on that was because it was a national problem. I had spoken to people in California, Washington State, Virginia, a right-to-work state. God help you if you lose your union. A teacher in Pennsylvania, and there's 2 other teachers from New York. Now, these teachers are so fearful about repercussions to their activism that they won't even allow me to publish or speak their names. They have been so beaten down by the system that is currently put in place to destroy our unions. So to further the story, Randy responded. Now, I sat back in my chair and went, huh? Like right away. She responded right away. And she asked for my number and if one of her staff could contact me. And they did. They called me. And my suggestion was, could we get some teachers on the phone, as NYSUT taught me, to speak truth to power? And she said, sure. So we organized a conference phone call with multiple badass teachers that were in trauma and crisis from across the country, as well as other union leaders from a few other states. I mean, you know, local presidents, not statewide leaders. And the phone call was very emotional. The stories were horrifying. And I don't think there was not a dry eye on the phone. Randy became very emotional on the call, and she said, I promise you, we're gonna do something about this. And we put a plan together on the phone, and that was last October 2014. We worked together every Wednesday night on a conference phone call with Randy's staff diligently to find a way to expose the horrific working conditions in this country for public educators. And we came up with this survey that, believe it or not, had 80 questions. So everybody said, wow, nobody's gonna answer an 80-question survey, especially on social media or via email. So we persevered, and we believed in what we were doing so strongly. We put it out there anyways with Randy's support and her staff. We were able to get it out, and in 10 days, 31,000 teachers responded to this survey. Never, ever believe that your voice does not matter. It matters, because what we have accomplished through this is extraordinary. Through the leadership of the Badass Teachers Association and the leadership of Randy and her team, we have results that show and prove to the federal government and policymakers the damage they are doing to public educators. 86% of the 31,000 respondents told us they have been treated for depression, stress-related illness, and other stress disorders. 86% of the respondents. That means 3 out of 4 teachers are in the classroom right now suffering under these current work conditions. That also means that our children are suffering too. So we have, with the survey results, called for, there was a national call for a scientific study. That call is still out there. We're still looking. We have a meeting with Arnie Duncan's senior staff next Friday, July 24th at 3:30. My team members, who don't want me to reveal their names, will be showing up to speak truth to the United States Department of Education on the policies of their working conditions. And then this is huge. Was it last Thursday? It was last Thursday. Last Thursday, I got a text from one of Randy's teammates that have helped us so much. And my team is filled with gratitude with this partnership we've been able to wield with the AFT to do this, and Randy's dedication to our team. We got a phone call that, of all people, Senator Cory Booker and Senator Bennett have written an amendment to the ESA Reauthorization Act that is in the Senate right now to make sure that Title II funding is utilized and available to investigate the stressful work environment of American teachers.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Can I hear from Betty?
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm going to try to follow that. Thank you very much. I have a happy story. My journey to leadership actually started as a chapter leader for my school, that voice being heard outside of the classroom, but to just represent the needs and concerns of my staff members in that capacity. I'm fortunate enough to work in an environment under leadership, under an administrator that actually believes in teachers' voice. That actually, yeah, shout out to Monique Campbell. But she realized, and this is long before the teacher leaders and all of these initiatives came into play, she believed that the experts were in the classrooms, the practitioners, the teachers. And if you're going to aid and assist and help students in any initiative, whether it be curriculum mapping or lesson planning, it has to come from the ground, basically the classroom. So it was even more exciting when this little outfit called, or initiative called PROS came along and combined the DOE, the UFT, and the CSA in a way that allowed for teachers to be able to stay in the classroom and do the jobs that we love, but also have leadership roles that actually directly get our voices heard. And what a great way to do that, progressive redesigning, meaning that we get to teach our students. We don't have to teach within a structured apparatus because one size does not fit all. It doesn't work that way anymore. So, thank you. We are not just allowed, but we are encouraged to look at the needs of our students and come up with ways to better teach our students. I teach in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. It's an impoverished area. Oh, thank you, Brooklyn. And these kids don't traditionally, or don't learn in the traditional way, but they do learn. And it is up to us, and we should be allowed, and thank God now we are allowed to a great degree, to teach our students. And the collaborative piece that goes along with the PROS initiative is just, and it's not just a buzzword that's being thrown around. We get buzzwords every year. This year, everybody's saying, oh, collaboration, collaboration, but it does work. I strongly believe in teamwork. I believe that if we're sitting around a table, if it's a grade meeting or if it's a subject meeting, and we're dealing with issues of how best to get this lesson taught, the answer is in the room. It's around that table. Not only that, we're allowed to be humans. You know, teachers are looked at as, superheroes, and we're not. I'm far from it. So what happens within the collaborative environment is that it's okay if I'm deficient in lesson planning because someone else is strong in lesson planning. It's okay that I'm a badass teacher when it comes to management, right? Because maybe someone else needs some assistance in that area, and it's okay. And that's what the collaborative piece that led me to leadership, because I just honestly believe the more heads, the more voices in that room, the better our chances are of finding a solution, of answering the question, right? And at the end of the day, of being able to best meet the needs of our students. So, as I said, I did the UFT. I've been a chapter leader for 7-8 years. I've been school leadership president again, because now, again, in the area that I teach, having that parent piece is so difficult. We have a lot of single parent students, and the parents are bombarded with their own life issues, but to have them have their voices heard as well. So, I was that connection there. And then, of course, under the leadership, the peer team collaborative teacher, I think it's called now. I was a PIC last year. I'm something else this year. But it's still, again, it's taking on the role of saying, let's get together as a group and let's find best practices that actually impact and assist our students and meet them where they are. Thank you.
So we've heard about the stories of each one of these incredible leaders, and there's a question I want to ask each of you. we've made our voice heard outside of our classroom, but how did that impact your classroom? So go back to inside of your classroom and the things that you've done and your teacher voice and having that bully pulpit to speak truth to power. How did it come back to your classroom? Alicia, we'll start with you.
Okay. Again, my point of view from our teacher leadership is really engaging the community and for students to really see you outside of that role of just their classroom teachers, particularly in the urban environments, they just need you to take on additional roles. And so one initiative I took last year, I taught in the 9th grade academy. And so in my particular school, those were the students that were the lowest of the low as far as data for test scores, behavior. They were just very disengaged, and they were having a very difficult time transitioning into high school. And so one initiative I took, I experimented with home visits. And so what I would do is go into the community. And I did 24 home visits in that year. And what I realized was the change that I saw in their engagement and their trust. And trust is so important when it comes to learning. And they finally trusted me. And so they started to make efforts because they truly believed, Ms. Hunter really does care. She came to my house, she sat down, and, I had tea, I had dinner, and, I normally stayed at each house for over an hour. And we weren't even talking about behavior problems or grades. We were just getting to know each other as people. And so the students, they need that additional effort from the teacher to really trust you, to listen to what you're saying, to really be engaged. And so home visits were extremely powerful as a step towards community engagement.
Excellent. She's not an ASHE board certified teacher, but she's going to become one because that's core prop number 1. Mark, I know that you've done a lot with professional development, so tell us what you've done with the Common Core standards, Share My Lesson, and how that's translated back to the classroom.
Well, so if you believe in teacher voice and teacher leadership, I've always believed in student leadership within the classroom, and so it was a natural extension to remind myself that, once I became involved in citywide teacher leadership, that yes, back in the classroom there is still student leadership within the classroom, and what that looks like, and where that can be fostered and within the classroom. So it was a good reminder to me on what I always believed at the beginning of my career, and then as I moved through the teacher leadership positions, to come back to that.
Mm-hmm. Mary, you've had the ultimate experience of your own, teaching your own granddaughter.
Yes.
And how did that help you in the classroom?
Well, I've always told everyone that I work with that my students are like my children. Mm-hmm. You treat others the way you want to be treated. I treat my students the way I wanted my children to be educated. So when I had my daughter there, I realized more so how to teach this type of child. They want us to teach them higher level skills, but I often found myself lowering, I guess, my expectations for that day and having to go back and teach them. The one thing that just surprised me completely was that they didn't even know how to use a regular dictionary. So I focused on what she was needing and addressed it to all my students, and I think it really helped. Knowing what your child needs is the same thing as your students. So that's how it helped me even more so realize that students are my children. I have 8 grandchildren, but I have a lot of children.
So, thank you. Betty and Jamie, I think, Betty, we've kind of led parallel lives, meaning starting a school, since I started a magnet engineering school, and working on a team, and having a voice for them, that bully platform, and providing evidence to people who didn't think these things would work before you started them. How did your students see your work outside of the classroom translate back into the classroom?
Well, unlike the young lady here, if I show up at their door, they're not going to open it. But I think it's important to have students see you in a role outside of, that person in the classroom that's yelling and screaming, which I do. But I'm one of those that, I'll do lunch duty, I'll hang out with kids, I'll lunch and learn with them. I make sure that what I am saying to them, I'm actually doing with them. Because kids will hold you to that. So don't make promises that you can't keep. But I believe firmly that if they see you in different roles, then they're going to be more open to you making those changes that are necessary for them. So yes, come up for lunch today. I'll give you a pass, and we're going to work on that writing piece that you tried to hand me, and I'm not taking it. That kind of thing. So it is important to have them see you doing what you do in the classroom, but also that they know that they have a voice. If there's a problem, I can go. My principal, as I said, I'm in a very unique situation where I can go into her office at any time and say, look, this kid needs this. And then have that kid realize that not only that I hear them, but that I actually did something about it. So that's very important.
Okay, so Jamie, we have 1 minute.
1 minute? For me, I'm lucky enough to teach high school, so I teach participation in government. Imagine that. So my students, I'm their role model. What I'm doing outside of my classroom is a role model, and my desire is to model for them how to keep democracy alive. And by participating in lobbying and participating in this process and speaking out for them, I'm helping to keep democracy alive in this country. Lastly, the big reward was at graduation this year, the senior class president actually said, Mrs. Bryce Hyde has taught me how to participate in a democracy, and that it is imperfect, but without our voice, it will no longer exist. And I sat there and went, yes!
Okay. That is absolutely perfect. One of the things I learned from Ron Thorpe is there should be a teacher voice in everything that involves teachers. We can no longer surreptitiously have things done to us, for us, without being at the table. So we need to arm ourselves with policy. As an accomplished teacher, having a deep understanding of our content and pedagogy, to make sure that they're in this profession, that we use our professional capital, that we understand that there's a clear path through this profession. That was his goal, his vision, and something that we as a profession, because National Board cannot do this alone, will carry out. I promise you. Everybody knows that Ron was a Latin teacher, and in my worst Latin, and somebody's going to correct me, I'm sure, is aut viam inventiam aut faciem, which means I will find a way or I will make a way.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you so much to our teacher leader panelists. Let's give them a round of applause again. Thank you. We heard a lot of great examples here today of what it means to commit acts of leadership. And by leadership, I don't mean telling people what to do or whom to follow or how to act. As Hubert Humphrey, one of my favorite fellow Minnesotans, said, leadership in today's world requires far more than a large stock of gunboats and a hard fist at a conference table. No, as educators, we understand that leadership is about listening, learning, walking in each other's footsteps, and ultimately being willing to take risks. In the next year, we know that the attacks are coming at us fast and furious. From the Friedrichs case in the US Supreme Court that threatens our ability to function as a union, to the continuing attempts at the state level to take away our rights to collectively bargain, we will be on the defensive. And a lot of people will be expecting us to hunker down and to spend the next year building bunkers. How about instead, we take some of the examples and ideas we heard today and make them come to life in our own school districts and our own communities? How about we fight back and we fight forward? The people who know us, that fight us, know that together we cannot fail, which is why they are trying so hard to pull us apart. We shouldn't be surprised by these attacks, and we shouldn't shrink from them either. So I'm going to end here with a call to action for all of you. What would you do if you knew you could not fail? Tell us. Share your ideas with us and with your colleagues. Get those ideas to those AFT reporters, visit the Voices booth at the Expo, and put your heads together. Take that dream and turn it into reality, because your local, your state, and your national union have your back. We need your creativity. We need your innovation. And we need your leadership. Now is the time. Thank you very much for this morning.